This is Simon with toughtrader.com. It is Monday morning. I hope everyone had a great weekend, the 11th of December. So coming into the day, we are pretty neutral. ES is up about 50, NQ is up about 8 1/4. CL looked pretty flat last I looked, but I'm sure it's coming around. Let me get my phone plugged in. I will take a look at that in just a moment. The Russell charts are back. Can everyone hear me clearly? Are we good on audio? Good. Okay, cool. And video is good. I'm going to take it. So the big question is, what do I expect for the day, right? And what are we looking to? So we have almost no news coming out. If we look at how the markets behaved overnight, which I'm going to show right now, and before I get started, throw this up on the screen. Past performance is not indicative of future results. There's substantial risk to trading futures. You can lose a lot of money. Make sure you have a trade plan, right? Don't just go at this randomly, right? And then the last piece is I'm trying to share my trade plan with y'all in hopes that it makes you a better trader. Take what you like, leave the rest of it, right? And adapt it as you see necessary to your trade plan. That's what the best traders do. That's all there is to it, flat out. So one step at a time. So number one, when we look at the overnight, there was a news blip that came out this morning about a bombing in New York City. Apparently, New York police responded to it, and there's been an arrest. You can see the markets did not have much of a response. This is ES on a 5-minute or 10-minute, overnight. This is what it looked like. This is clearly where the news blip came out, and there was just zero response to it at all. The volume has been heavier to this just lays out where the volume has been. Volume has been heavier to the sell side, but not significantly so. And even with volume being heavier to the sell side, they just haven't been able to get below the last swing low. Important to remember, we've essentially held the let me get over here real quick. We have essentially held above the swing low from Friday afternoon overnight. This is your target to know something's wrong. You might want to put that down, 26.46 3/4. That's the first marker in your health to know that the market is pushed below, right? And that that we have a chance of filling this gap. If we do not fill this gap, right, expect continued sideways trading in ES and or pushes to the upside. 26.59 is the next logical upside target from here. It's slow, right? I pointed that out in the video here. Even when capturing the low, it was just, this is normally a quick response, and it just took a lifetime to get the push back up. It just did. There was just no response out of this that was anywhere near quick. That's an important piece of information on ES. Why? Because a lot of us are, myself included, look for the market to respond quickly. And part of rewriting my own internal code that I was writing in my journal this weekend was that near the top of the market's just going to be slow and grindy. There's no other way to put it, right? So when I take a trade, I need to respond to that trade in a way that says, okay, I will simply sit on this. I want to see something here real quick. That is correct. There's the problem. Here we go. I apologize. This one did not have the evening session thrown on it. It does now. It'll be out in 1 second. I apologize. I thought I had the evening session thrown in there. You'll see it. It looks pretty much similar. There's the news right there. I saw it in the 30-minute. That was the news push right there. You can see we've gotten above our last seller overnight. So this is still that 26. So let's pull this back in one more time so we can see the whole picture. 1 second. There we go. Oh, that's a little too much. Okay. Here's Friday's trade, right? This simply took forever, right, to get going. We finally pushed out. This is where I was attempting the long from on Friday afternoon. It just took a Friday morning. It just took a lifetime to get the push out. We finally got that push out, right? Here's the news of the bombing overnight. And you can see we didn't even get back to 26.51.50. And we have to at least get below this 26.46, which doesn't seem very likely at this point, right? Why? You can kind of gauge how much fears there is in the market relative to when a news announcement comes out. That was a bombing, and it's in thin conditions, right? It should be easy to push this market down. It simply could not get it down. I would expect a test of this low. If this holds and we fail to break this bar, specifically 26.52, right? We fail to break that bar. My suspicion would be that we will push to the upside from here in a slow, grindy manner. Why? There's no econ. We have multiple central banks with meetings this week, and the market tends to square / sit tight, and that's a pretty good litmus test for if there are any sellers. Right now, get below 26.51.50, and then below that lower level down here at 24.46.75, and the picture changes. But I would primarily expect that we're going to have something similar to Friday, which is slow and grindy, which means I'm looking for pushes down, right? I'm looking for traps on the edges, tick divergence, these type of setups to help me determine where I want to get long. And then I'm going to have to change my mentality. Once I take that long, I'm just going to have to sit there and either take the win or take the loss, or, right, there's a third choice. Choose not to trade, right? I can just simply go, hey, it's not a fast market. I'm not going to trade it, right? I'm unlikely to come up with that option. I'm going to look for areas where I can get good location. We'll go to the profiles in just a second. That's my 2 cents about that. My guess is that this bar represents where all the sellers, anyone who has a weak hand, came in on this bar. And my suspicion is that this bar will either set up as a trap back to the upside, or that they'll simply absorb sellers into this bar and push back up. And you can see we've been forming and are forming a little wedge on this time frame. Let's just jump to one other higher time frame before we go on, and then we'll take a look at the profile there. And you can see on the, I believe I have selected 30 minutes here. Let me make sure it's right. I've got that correct. And on the 30-minute profile, you can see we are forming this upward rising wedge. There just it's higher highs and higher lows all the way through here. Zero reason to be bearish. Again, unless we get below the meat of Friday afternoon, which is at 26.49.25. Certainly doable from a stretch standpoint. Market just shows no inclination to get below. My imagination is if we push above 26.56.75 and consolidate up there, that we will push towards 26.59, and then possibly levels higher from there is just a logical responsive choice with higher highs and higher lows. The trend is your friend. In this case, when there's no sell pressure, you're looking for pushes down to get long against, right? The market falls apart. It'll tell us that there's some piece of news that no one knows about, but I would guess balance all the way through the day. I would try to be less active in ES, find my position, lock and load, and hold for the swing to a logical location above, which, if you look at the chart, so now this is where the chart comes into play. We look at the ES chart. We're currently trading at 26.56. Globex high came at 26.58.50, which was perfect. It was right at the back of the zone. We'll just throw this right here for sake of conversation, right? So obviously, getting above 26.58.50 and holding sets us up for a test at 26.67 to 26.70. That would also be a 15-point extension up from the prior day's high. There's no news to drive us up here. I imagine we stall somewhere in this 26.67 area and probably trade off to go sideways, right? There's just nowhere to go from it, and there's no news to drive us higher. Stalling is the most logical answer right underneath new all-time highs while we build energy, right? On the downside, obviously getting below 26.49. Globex low came in at 52 and a quarter, one tick above the white zone, right? So again, very mechanical overnight. We've had a piece of interesting news, and there was almost no response to it. That kind of gives me a clue, but that's Globex. That's Globex low there. You can see the range is very narrow, and I expect that to continue through the course of the day, and we may just end up ping-ponging between these two locations, right? So we'll see what the internals look like. Again, if they drive up and the internals don't support open drive higher, I will look for a pushback into range or an attempt to close the gap, and then I'll be looking for a trade into this 2652 area for an eventual push towards 2658. But it could be very, very slow and very, very long grind in that particular to get that particular scenario to set up. Okay, let's go to NQ. Any questions about ES, members in the room? Okay, I'm not showing anyone pinging me. Let me make sure that is correct. Okay. Let us jump to NQ. Let's get Globex high. And actually, before I leave that, let's get in the tick. Again, over trading, guys, will kill you in this slow grind market, right? Everyone's got the Russell. I'll be paying attention to it. This is the first time it took me 3 days to get my Russell chart adjusted properly. So please just make sure I got the white zones in the right place. I usually nail it on Russell. Let's just make sure. I'm going to give it 1 day to make sure that my trade locations are showing up. But usually these zones are money. So I'm just going to watch them for 1 day, make sure they're kicking in properly. NQ, Globex high came in. We're up 8 1/4. Globex high came in at 63.78. Just shy of the white zone. That's Globex high, just to add another line in that area. Again, the TPO point of control and the volume point of control were spread out. I elected to go with the more conservative location. If you were going to attempt to short, I always do that, right? Which means I needed the bigger stretch. Just to get there, my guess is we will check up on this volume point of control. My guess is we will get some type of counter rotation. If we get above 63.91, right? So this is important. If we consolidate above 63.91, right, and we don't find any responsive sellers, expect to push out to Friday's high, last week's high, and there's plenty of room to the upside on NQ. NQ is strong. There's no question about it. The sell-off was, I thought, unusual. We expanded a lot of energy near the end of the week. Again, with this being very heavy on the central bank's activity this week, I would expect consolidation and energy building. And it's been pretty, you can look at the price action from Friday and you can see just everyone was just kind of, blah, right? We opened up. This is open auction blender. It's unusual to fill all the way in like we did, particularly when we hold up in the first hour. You would have expected to push out. These two markets, ES and NQ, were not in alignment. I would not mistake a down day or what appeared to be a down day. Don't confuse the fact that we weren't even able to tag the closing print from Thursday on Friday, right? So certainly not weak, even though it looked weakish, right? And we're trading right in the middle of this area. We're trading right at 23.67. If you look at the 50-60 back from Friday, right? The market overnight responded right in the middle of the 50-60. The volume point of control was above. This is where I expect to squeeze shorts up to, but we're opening right in the middle of the range. As long as we hold this structure here to the left, right, in principle, we hold between this structure to the left and this white zone, we should come back up and get a retest of Friday's high, would be my expectation. Closing the gap, failure to get back above the white zone. This is not Dalton's gap, by the way. It's just a closing print gap. Closing this area, right, and then inability to get back above. So if we come in and close the gap and then we consolidate underneath here, right, would set us up, really, would set us up for a push to retest these lower areas. I don't expect that to happen. NQ's looked relatively strong. An open drive lower would change my opinion on that. An expansion in range, right? But again, you can see on NQ, I'm going to switch back to the other chart. 20. On NQ, I am looking to buy dips. You can see, let's go to 10-minute NQ. Should be right here. There we go. And you can see again, Let's make sure we have our chart settings set to overnight. We do. Okay, and you can see in the overnight session, this again is where the news came out, a quote, negative selling. You see the majority of the volume has actually been on balance to the long side. If we don't get below this news swing low right here, let's just call that the pseudo New York bombing report. I think it was in the bus terminal. Was it 63.59? And if we don't get below that 63.59, there's no short. They're just going to come back up and re-explore areas above. I hate to sound so mundane about it. There's just when you look at the bigger structures, right? When we go to the TPOs, right? You got to remember our neighborhoods and where we're sitting. So this is day session only, right? We're currently trading 63.68, right? Which puts us right in this neighborhood. Remember, the market wants to come back and it left a hole in the profile right here, 63.68, 63.60. But once we repair that, right, there's really not a lot of damage below. There is a little bit of a poor profile. The only thing we want to find out is if we drop underneath, right? So when I'm looking from a strategic standpoint, right, if I fail to get back, let's say we open up, we drop below 63.62 and fail to recover, that sets us up to come back and test. The only way this sets up a dangerous situation is there's not much to repair in this profile here, right? See how these profiles are well defined. You can clearly see the TPO and the volume points of control are relatively close together. There's not a lot of damage. Like, see, this profile here has a lot of damage. And once it got repaired, so if we look, right, see this through here? See how the profile is damaged from here to here? See how the market came all the way through and repaired everything except this one little space, right? So notice that we came up. We had a big rotation. It gets exhausted as it's moving through the prior point of control, right? It gets exhausted as it's moving through the prior point of control. Gets up, can't quite get to that anomaly to get it repaired, and then it's tired, so it just auctions back through in a slow, grindy way, right? If you look, once we finally came up to repair this anomaly, right, you can see that we actually gapped up from above, fixed this anomaly, and then the market really had nothing to do. It just sat there because we didn't have enough energy to push higher. We didn't have enough energy to push lower. The market had really done its job. This was the last piece in this chart that needed to get fixed. There's pretty easy trading to the upside, and there's nothing to fix to the downside, which means when you have nothing to fix to the downside, it can move quickly to the downside, but it has to have a catalyst, and we have no catalyst. We've already seen that there's news. So therefore, with the hint of the news that came out, my expectation is that we're either going to just sit here and balance in this range and or push up, and I'll know after we open from that scenario which scenario is going to play out, right? Scenario number 2 on ES, we'll take a quick look at it. So if you'll see, let's fix that. There's really no damage to the profile from Friday. It looked fine. There's nothing that stands out that needs to get fixed. This area above needs to be repaired. This location from 2661 all the way up to 2664 needs to get repaired. Once it does that, this area of the chart is fixed. You can see that we pushed to 2658 overnight, and that is just at that volume point of control, right? The next, excuse me, the TPO point of control. The next one's the volume point of control at 2659. Then this little area that needs to get repaired in the profile, which stretches from 2661 to 2664. My guess is once we're done with that, we balance, right? So that would be my target on the upside. If we consolidate above or really build energy and push, 2669 is the next target, but you got to remember it takes a lot of energy. Why? Because there's sellers that are trapped in here, and they are going to respond down. So my bottom line is I'm looking to be, if we really stretch, I'm looking to be a responsive buyer down at 2640 neighborhood, 2640, 42. I am looking for opportunities to short between 2658.75 and the high of this area, 2664.475. That's where I'm looking for short opportunities if the market develops. And then a quick push down if we don't break the overnight swing low. I would expect that we just chop, and I'll look for just a quick trade where I can tack on 2 or 3 points for the day, which, by the way, is all you need to have a good day and make a lot of money, right? One good trade. So what are you looking for? That one opportunity where they are panicking, right? Where there's displacement in sellers versus buyers. You'll see it in the market. You tend to have volume expansion. They lift the bids or they lift the asks. You'll see delta pushes, and that's it, right? There's nothing more exciting than that relative to the market. So let's see what the internals look like, and I expect to have a good week. I will be posting all the trades moving forward in the room. I haven't been very good about keeping up on the spreadsheet. I will fix that. And again, one step at a time, one day at a time. You know, relative to what's going on, if you look at the market relative to Bitcoin, right? Here's the picture of Bitcoin from last night. Here's the open of Bitcoin futures last night. It was immediate $1,000 move to the upside. This thing's on steroids, and now it has leverage on top of that. There were no responsive sellers. It just came back in. You can see once we broke above the initial bar, it really traded pretty mechanically and pretty well. You can't see my crosshairs. There you go. So you can see this is the bar that opened up. It was $1,000. I kid you not. At $10 a tick, that's just insane. Let me move this down. Hold on one second. Let me fix this chart up for you. There we go. Okay. This one bar, this is a 5-minute chart, right? This right here, this is $1,000 move at $10 a tick, right? So that's just nuts. Okay, 1,000 contracts traded in the first 3 hours, right? So that's relatively speaking low volume, but you can see mechanically it operated very, very nicely. Look at the backside test into the opening bar, right? Came backside tested, pushed straight out. You also, as I'm starting to chart Bitcoin, right? Same deal. That's essentially the opening print. It's not bearish unless it gets below $14,453, right? That's the first sign there. And again, you can see on balance overnight, the majority of the volume has been to the upside. Unless we get past this bar, right? I wouldn't even remotely think bearish thoughts about that unless new structure sets up, right? And you can see this structure was actually quite logical where we tested in from the push to the low. You know, when you're checking this out, here's your profile, and you can see we fell just short prior to the open of a 50-60 retrace, but this thing does trade technically soundly. It's and then obviously you also have a trend line that was failed to get broken, and it still failed to get broken. So Bitcoin looks healthy at this point, unless it rolls back down. It needs about another $1,000 to break to a new all-time high. And you can also see volatility actually dropped after the futures open. That's normally what happens. Like if you looked at a litmus test for how markets work, futures markets tend to bring order to the market out of cash markets, and that's because you can hedge against future events, right? You can buy out future month contracts, and that tends to bring order and lower volatility. So that's a good thing, right? Because if we want to be able to trade it at any point, we need the volatility to come in to some degree, right? So just to give you an idea of VIX, when they first came out trading, the whole day, the entire day, I believe it traded either 300 or 400 contracts. That was in 2002. In the first 3 hours, this traded 1,000 contracts. So a lot more interest in Bitcoin. And you can see immediately started trading sideways. And my expectation is that the volatility will drop, and it needs to if I'm going to be able to trade the futures on it. So that's a good thing. If the volatility came in 50 to 75%, that would be helpful. So because right now at $10 a tick, I don't have the stomach for it, is my 2 cents. So I'll keep monitoring it. Let's go have a great day. Wrong chart. Let's see if we can get this. Hold on one second. Bitcoin, regular charts. Let's switch over. And we are open. Let's go look at the internals real quick, guys. So internals are opening at positive 1,300 advancers. We generally find responsive sellers on pushes up on that setting, right? I want to say that again. We generally find responsive sellers on a push up, initial push up. It generally does not turn into a trend day up. Please, please, please keep that in mind as you get started with your day. Hold on one second here. I'm going to stack these. And on NQ specifically, on a dip into 63, 62, I am looking for responsive buyers if they'll push down for a push back up. And I do not want to see it close behind 63.59 on that push. Again, internals are relatively neutral. I would not expect them to be able to continue to push up. And again, if you want to be aggressive on the short side on ES, you are looking, if you want to short this push, you do not want to close above 26.58.50. You do not want to close above 26.58.50 initially, and you would look for a push back down towards that New York low, towards 26.52. Okay, so that is the setup coming out of the gate. And that is it. I would look for a push down out of this. I would not look for a continuation up. Hold on 1 second here. And NQ is pushing out right out of the gate, right into the overnight high. Again, on NQ, again, tick is pretty neutral here, right? So on NQ, you would really expect that to get a responsive selling out of a 22-point move up early in the day. You really would for a pushback down. So again, they didn't have much of a sell response early on there overnight, so it's not shocking to see the pushback up. We're simply pushing back towards, get this bigger picture. We're simply re-auctioning back towards the high. 63.98 is your stop against that. It's just shy of the white zone at this point. Again, I would expect them to come back in with the responsive sellers on that. I'd be very much surprised if they simply drove that up, unless there's news on NQ that I'm missing. I don't think that there is. Just 1 second. Again, a close and a hold above 26.56 on ES would lead me to believe that's a push up. And by the way, I have that written out, right? So I know what I'm looking at. So I'm expecting responsive sellers here from NQ. And again, I'm looking towards a push, towards the overnight, towards that overnight low, towards 26.52. And you can see they're responding right now back to the inside on NQ. Again, the internals did not support an open drive higher. And I'm going to make this Russell chart pretty small and check up on it as it goes through the day. If NQ, unless there's news out on NQ that I'm not aware of, that white zone should hold it. Again, we have a piece of I think moderate information coming out at Econ, but it was not important. It was not important. I listed it on the private Twitter stream. Let's see if I have it here still. It is 10 a.m. Jolt's job openings. I think it'll have absolutely zero impact on the market. Again, you should be trading at this point the March contract. The majority of the volume should be on the March contract at this point. Again, I'm just going to wait till things settle out here. Monday, there's absolutely zero rush to be in a hurry to trade this one way or the other. Pushing up into the white zone. Again, I expect rejection out of this area. We'll see if that holds true. This is where I expected Globex high would come in. So, as you know, I made a dedication to not calling out trades prior to the end of the first half hour. I do expect rejection out of this white area, right? So my aggressive traders, you know what you have to do. That's obviously a potential open drive higher on NQ. Again, the internals 1444 advancers, pretty neutral, right? So generally you would expect that to come in. Same thing, ES is tagging up into the white zone. Right out of the gate, you can see we got the projection right out of the gate to start the day. Make this a little bit smaller. Let's get this over. I'll make this a little bit bigger. ES rejecting properly. You now have 2 points out of the white zone from the first push in over here. That's as it's supposed to be. And there goes the NQ rejection back to the downside out of the white zone. Again, on NQ, the area I want to attempt to grab or what I'd be targeting on the short, either way you want to look at that, is 63, 62, 63, 65 area for a long side rotation back up. That was the push down and overnight, and there was just no responsive sellers beyond that, right? So this is the backside test of TPO point of control and Globex high. You can see there's locals responding, right? See when it responds right off of Globex low like that? That's locals. Open auction, obviously. We're just crisscrossing on ES. The white zone's already given 2 points right out of the gate. I'd still expect rejection on NQ back down, but maybe today's a magical Monday. I doubt it. Again, the zone's doing their jobs pretty much perfectly there. We're getting rejection out. I'd really like a push down at some point here. So see how we're bouncing along that? That tells you that's not OTF, right? That is purely locals trading that the backside test of that Globex high, right? That's guys who are like you and me who, well, not me, but it's guys that are sitting there looking and going, well, where's a good trade location? What? And they're reading, well, if it breaks Globex high, the backside test is your long. And if it, if you shorten the Globex high and you get the backside test and it busts above, you need to cover. But those are all small traders trading, right? No institution looks at Globex high and goes, oh, that's a magical location for me. It doesn't mean it's a bad place to trade. It just means that that's who your competition is. And again, on NQ, we're testing into the 30-minute point of control right into the high from Friday on that breakdown bar and rejecting out of that. So that was part of the reason I expected rejection out of that area, and we are getting that accurately. I want to show that to you. Guys, this goes back to the coaching session, right? There's the this bar right here, the point of control from this breakdown bar, tested right to it, right? And you can see we didn't quite get back to it Friday. We've now corrected that and tested that bar. And remember, the market likes to test areas. So now we've tested it. It's now free to come back down and correct a move and then come back in and perhaps re-examine this structure down below before continuing up higher, right? If we get behind this, right, the next major area is this structure right in here, which is roughly 63.48. That's the next major point of control that needs to be tested, but I seriously doubt that we're going to push that far down. We're probably going to chop all the way through this area, right? Anyways, that's my 2 cents. 30 minutes. Ron, that's 30-minute chart. So now the fight is, can they get it back above 63.78? If they can't get it above 63.78, I expect this to get re-auctioned pretty easily. All right. The Russell's into the first white zone test. So you can see we opened up in the white zone and pushed out from 26 to 30. That would have given you your 2 points right out of the gate, right? Again, I'm not trying to prove a point. I'm just trying to monitor very closely how those white zones work. And make sure I got them right. It's been 3 days since I've had the Russell up. I just want to make sure I got the locations correct. That was a good, from the white zone now, you've achieved 63.85 all the way down to 63.74. It's a good trade, guys. Right? That's 10 points. 63.84 to 63.74. It's $200 a contract, right? There's nothing wrong with that. That's an excellent trade, right? So 2 from the white zone on ES, 10 on the white zone from NQ, and great trade location in each case, right? I'm looking at 2362, 6362 on NQ. I gotta write this down. With a 10-point stop. For a long. That's aggressive because it's just buying it straight into the hole, right? So there's two ways to enter this. Thanks. So Ron is pointing out that the low from Friday needs to be repaired, that it was a weak low down at 63.52. So valid point as well. Ron, I don't know if we can make it to get repaired. You would have thought that the news of the bombing and whatever that bus station is, terminal in your city, would have pushed it overnight, but they couldn't push it down overnight. Like it was just a shoulder shrug. No one responded to it. So I don't think we have enough energy to get down there, is my thought process. ES is now pushing back up into the white zone. Again, I still expect this to get faded out of the white zone, meaning I still expect to get gap fill and push lower at some point today. Glovex high is 26.58 and a quarter. 58.50, excuse me. Advancers have creeped up. We're now at 1,600 advancers. That's healthy. It's hard for the market to fall significantly when that happens. And tick is totally neutral. Again, the white zone's already achieved its 2 points. On NQ, the white zone achieved 10 points in PNL, $200 a contract. That pretty much, that's good. Hey, Ian, did you take your short out of the white zone out of the gate? I know you've been doing that pretty religiously. You did. Nice job. 2 points. Closing below 26.55.50 really gets NQ going at this point. Obviously, back to the towards the downside. You can see it's rejecting there out of the white zone yet again. NQ continues to roll. Again, the internals don't, the way the internals open don't support a trend day up type scenario most of the time. You know, the more optimal idea is, right, is to see when we get a big push down and then see when we get above the last seller, grab the backside test into the last seller and push up. That's the easiest way not to get smoked on any kind of horrendous push lower, right? Again, what we're doing is coming up for a backside test. That 2661 is a backside test of the former trap, right? We broke above 2661. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying it's bearish, but when you look at this on a bigger time frame, right? That was the breakout, comeback, trap, backside test, and roll. And now we're doing a bigger picture backside test into this 2661, right? So it would not be surprising to see rejection overall out of this area, even though we're slow grinding right now. It would not be surprising to see rejection out of that area. The close above 61 and a hold above, that all-time high doesn't have very much resistance to it. It could just easily bust out of there. Again, tick is pretty damn neutral. That's a test of Globex high right there. And remember, as a rule of thumb, you want to get underneath your last buyer to see that you're going to push back in. So there's two different strategies going here, right? If you're aggressive, the back of the white zone and Globex high against that 2670.50 or 2670.75, right? Or you wait till you get underneath and get a backside test of your last buyer for a roll back to the downside. Those are your two choices in this particular scenario. Again, expect algos and econ over the next minute. And also remember, a 10-point rotation here would put you at 65 intraday. And so one of the things I wanted to bring up to everyone, right, is before you take a trade, one of the things I'd like, particularly my one-on-one coaching members to do, is to write down what your setup is and what your expectation is for the trade before entering. No trade triggers so fast. No trade triggers so fast, right? None of us are dedicated scalpers that you don't have time to write down what your setup is. Whether it's, I want to get behind my last buyer, I want to get behind my last seller, I just scalp into the white zone on first touch. Write down what you're going to do. What that does is it shifts you out of impulsive thinking, right? Shifts you out of impulsive thinking and into slow thinking, right? Asking yourself the good questions. like, is this setting up on a trade setup that I am accustomed to taking, right? Does this set me up on a trade setup that I am accustomed to taking, right? That's one of the questions you want to be asking yourself, is that's the stutter step that's just enough to let you think through the process. What's your downside target, right? And what's your driver? Is it a tick divergence? Is it a delta divergence? Is it a 10-point rotation into a key location, right? Because we're above the white zone right now, right? This should have rejected, and it did, right? You got a 3-point rejection out of the front of the white zone from, 2-point rejection from 66.50 down to 64.50, right? You got a 10-point plus rejection out of the 63.83 or 63.84 front of the white zone here, right? So what that means is if you're on the open, right, you're going to go, I'm going to short the white, I'm going to short 63.84. Why? It's volume point of control. It's a white zone. It's a rotation up from X to Y. This is my expectation. This is when I know the trade has worked successfully. This is when I know the trade has failed, right? And I know this because, and then you go back to make sure you put a note, because I've studied this. This falls within the setups, and I'm willing to accept the gain or loss from this particular trade, right? I want to say it again. I'm willing to accept the gain or loss from this particular trade, right? Because I have studied the setup, and this is totally logical to me that this should work, right? That's my 2 cents. Again, internals are improving on the market. The tick is not particularly, this is not what we generally look at when we have a trend day up. There is a risk on environment in general. The market's advanced further than I thought it was going to this morning without pulling back. I would not expect trend day up out of this scenario unless I'm just completely out of my mind and wrong, and we somehow just scratch a trend day out of thin air without any news. But it's certainly possible. I'm not betting on it. And volume's kind of, it's all right. It's an all right ratio, but it's just not really, there's nothing great about it. Basically what I'm saying is I don't have a setup here. Banks must be strong this morning. So for those guys who are like, hey, Simon, I want to wait till I get my prime setup where I know I've got 20 or 30 points of trade opportunity set up, right? This is not that, right? Where's that coming from? From dips lower with tick divergence, getting above our last seller, catching people off guard, right? It's hard to get people off guard, and when it's slow, we have an easier time catching them off guard when they're getting sell pressure and they're panicking out of those positions, right? Again, I still expect this to come back in. Has been my experience when the internals look like this. Maybe I'm right. It's always when you're reading, right? So from a setup standpoint, the tick is not kicked into place, right? We have not yet to hit a plus 600 tick trade. NQ is not running, but it's consolidating its original gains to the upside, right? NES is up a whopping 4.75 points. Our entire range for the first half hour is just over 5 points. It's not an exceptional range. I'd expect profit taking at some point this morning. And then my key to look for longs, right, where my highest grade setups are, where I know I have the best chance of making a lot of money, is catching the sellers off guards on the edges, and then having the shorts be slow grind, push back in. Something to keep in mind: most hedge fund managers have booked their year, right? I'm going to say that again. Most hedge fund managers have booked their year. Okay, they're not anyone who's missed a performance. No one's trying to make it up at this point. Most everyone's had a great year this year, right? Most investors have had a great year. No one's looking to do anything exceptional at the end of the year. You're going to see the B team take over more and more as guys schedule their vacations. Why? They don't have to worry about performance. Why wouldn't you schedule your vacation in this environment, right? So that means it's going to be harder to get big pushes down without a driver, because no one's there to make any major portfolio decisions, at least as far as I can tell. And by the same token, there's no one there to really push it out of control either. Now, maybe it could be one of those Decembers where it is out of control, but think about it. Anyone who had performance anxiety, if you haven't caught up yet, you can't catch up in the next 2 weeks, unless you're trading Bitcoin maybe. So we should be in grindy environments. It'll be harder to get the pushes down, right? Which means it's really important that you get key locations, and it's important that you find the dislocations on the pushes lower. That was a pretty good tell overnight when we couldn't push back into when we really didn't push down from the quote. Look, I'm not saying that bombing was a significant bombing or that it's even legit. I don't know, but I do know this: when you get news events, the algos tend to get panicky on words like using the word bomb hits the news, and there's just no sellers there. So I find that interesting. And the white zone on the Russell, that's good. I'm glad I had it in the right location. I will resume attacking that tomorrow, as long as these holds up through the course of the day. Don't overcomplicate this, guys. It's slow, right? They'll wake up somewhere and they'll trap one edge or the other edge, right? But right now they have not come close to doing that. And keep creeping towards the high of the day. And we found some sellers finally. Again, I expected ES to come in from that push. On ES, I'm looking for a test of I will be looking long near 2652. If we get there, that's my plan. I'm writing that down. That's why I'm looking for responsive buyers near 2652 for pushback in for a balanced day. All right, that would be my anticipation. Again, that lines up with the white zone down here, so already pre-planned. That would have been my goal from the initial rejection out of the white zone. Again, we tested. It's rare to test that VPOC to the tick, but that's exactly what we did on NQ. We usually get rejection. Excuse me. I stand corrected. No, that's right. 52. So waiting patiently to get that hit. If I get that hit. James, good to see you in the room. How was Florida? Hey guys, thank you on YouTube for joining this morning. I apologize. I did not realize that. Well, there's nothing to apologize for. I just left the room open. If you enjoyed the broadcast, if you would please hit the like button. It helps me enormously with customer service on YouTube. Appreciate it. And I hope everyone had a great day. You can't get better than, look, here was the trade plan, right, as it's laid out, just depending on your aggression. But the white zone's a key location. You expect rejection out. Tagging to the white zone, 2 points. Tagging to the white zone, 10 points. This is worth $100 a contract. This is worth over $200 a contract just in this little move. This was worth that backside test or the open into 1526 was worth up to 4 points. On the Russell at $50 a point, that's $200 a contract, right? So the trade locations are key. Having a written trade plan, following your process through from A to B to C to D, and moving. Great, I'm glad to hear that. Watching your process, accounting for the process, and letting it pay you, right? Being patient enough, getting out of that emotional standpoint, and repeating your process mechanically as much as possible, right? If you have to make a change to the process, that's cool. Just make it when you have time to make that change, right? So anyways, that's my 2 cents. I appreciate you. Y'all have a wonderful day, and we will see y'all later. You're welcome to join the room if you'd like. If you want a 5-day pass, Trade and Perform, TradeandPerform @gmail.com.